Pay close attention to this dot, because that is not where the lesion is. Welcome back to Nate the Hoof Guy. Why am I having you focus on a mark if that's not even where the lesion is? Because this video is going to perfectly illustrate how a defect in that white line eventually causes a lesion. So let's try to explain this a little clearer. This hard outer layer that the cow walks on is actually produced on the inside of that hoof, right at that corium layer. So as that is being produced, let's say there's a flaw in there, maybe there's an imbalance that's causing a little bit of trauma to that corium. Well, that hoof horn development is not going to be sound. There's going to be a flaw in that. That's what we call a white line defect. That defect doesn't form properly, so you see these little red dots in here. That's a sign of that happening at the corium level. Now, at that point, it isn't really causing any problems. However, as that grows out, that defect, that poor spot in that horn, eventually is going to become exposed to the outdoors. And if this is a persistent problem, if that balance is persistent over time, what's going to eventually happen is there's going to be a void there that once exposed to the elements is going to allow stuff to get in, and then we have this. Bacteria is able to enter, that corium becomes inflamed, and the body's response to fight off this infection is where this fluid comes from. So what then? Well, now what we're trying to do is open this area up. We're going to get all the way down to that corium level, remove any loose horn, make sure that that corium has a healthy environment to begin to produce new hoof horn again, and then we can fix this problem. You'll notice as I work in closer to that corium, I'm also moving up that hoof to do so. Now, if this were something that had happened on the outside, we would expect that lesion to be directly underneath that dot. But, of course, as you can see, it is not. Typically, when you start to see the fluid, you're really close. But this one just seemed to keep going and going. And finally, we're through to that void underneath. We've still got a little bit more work to do here, and of course, she is going to need a block. Here you can see what that looks like and how far it is from that original mark. One final rinse down, a dab dry, salicylic acid wrap, and she is done.